Adrian Wojnarowski, the best there is, breaking this news that, as has been predicted now for a bit, Clint Capela will be on the move. There's 4 teams that are involved in this?
4 teams.
He's getting all right. He ends up in Atlanta. And there's a 4-team deal which Robert Covington ends up moving from Minnesota to the Rockets, Malik Beasley to the Wolves. And I'll just stop talking and Woj say, how there's a lot. Did I sort that out correctly, what you broke, the news? Is that right?
Yeah, key players in this, Robert Covington from Minnesota to Houston. That's the big wing player they wanted. Atlanta gets the center, Clint Capela. They've been on the market for. And then Denver moves out Malik Beasley and Hernan Gomez. They go to Minnesota in this deal.
Okay.
Minnesota gets Atlanta's first-round pick via the Brooklyn Nets. So they'll have now another first-round pick coming in this draft. You know, all this culminating tonight, this 4-team deal, when talks between Minnesota and Golden State that would have added to that 3-team deal. A 4th team, it would have been D'Angelo Russell, Andrew Wiggins. Those talks fell apart, and then Minnesota pivoted, got Denver involved, and they just got the deal done now.
So if I hear you correctly, and again, there's a lot of moving pieces here, the key thing that for Minnesota, they were hoping to get at least a first. They got it. And D'Angelo Russell, who was thought to perhaps be on the market, does this mean that he's staying put, or does it just mean Minnesota's out as far as a trade partner?
Well, Minnesota's out as a trade partner right now for him. You got the deadline is Thursday at 3 p.m. You know, New York has been a team that's had some interest in D'Angelo Russell. We'll get to that in a minute. I don't know if New York's in a position right now to pull off that kind of a deal. The Warriors know, listen, they can take Russell into the offseason, take a look at the draft in July if they want to move him on. You're going to see Golden State now try to move some contracts off and get out, kind of lower their luxury tax bill.
He said today he's comfortable being uncomfortable. So, I mean, he's obviously a lot of speculation about where he'll end up. You broke today that Steve Mills is out in New York, and you reported James Dolan would like to make a run at Masai with Toronto. I just want to know why. I don't understand why anyone would want to go there, given Dolan's history with the Knicks. But is this something that people in that position would covet, a job they'd want?
Well, he has coveted Masai Ujiri for years. But there are roadblocks in the way that are going to make that pursuit very difficult. He's under contract. The Knicks don't want to give up compensation. And I don't think they want to wait till the season's over right now. But the Knicks' job, despite everything that has happened there over the last couple of years, it remains, there is a romanticism still among league executives who still believe if you go to New York, if you build it right, free agents will still flock there. It is still Madison Square Garden. And if you are the one who delivers a winner to New York, I mean, never mind win a championship. If you could put a perennial playoff team on the court, you'll be the king of the city. There is no shortage of the very, very best executives in the NBA who want to crack at that Knicks job. The question's going to be, Scott, James Dolan has not pursued any of these guys when this job is open. He has never gone out in the market and said, who's the best executive in the league? Can I get him? He has not done that over the last several times it's been open.
And I've been smiling like an idiot at you the whole time you're talking, just because I'm thinking, look, in the offseason, hey, you're going to get Durant. And then, yeah, he went to New York, but he went to Brooklyn. They don't win playoff games, man. Like, I just don't. The Knicks, we talk more about the Knicks than any team that is lousy than any team that's lousy. That's a fact.
But executives know if you can put the infrastructure in place and build an organization the way Sean Marks did in Brooklyn, the way Lawrence Frank and Mike Winger did with the Clippers, in these markets, you are going to get elite players. New York has not been able to build, Scott, that foundation that a star player comes in and says, plug me in, and we have a contender. They're not coming into essentially what's an empty house.
Okay. Look, I'm not, you know more than me. The next time the Knicks will be, are good will be the first time they've been good in a long, long time. Woj, appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, to the Spurs and the Lakers. LeBron had it cooking tonight. LeBron and the Lakers welcome in an LA guy, DeMar DeRozan, and the Spurs. JaVale McGee, give it to him.
Oh!
Rides a spaceship to work. Love him. What's the name of his cat again, Marco? He had a cat. Can't remember his cat. Raja, that's right. Down the lane goes LeBron. Spinning, hitting, just getting warm. 11 in the half. Danny Green throws it up. Oh, it's Anthony Davis. Lakers leading by double figures at the break. In the fourth, LeBron, who cannot make free throws but can hit free threes like this. Do it again. Okay, I will. All three of these. I'll never understand the free throw thing with him. It just makes no sense. Like this, what's the degree of difficulty of that?
A lot.
Falling down, getting hit. 5 threes in the fourth, ties his career high. That's actually a 4-point play. And the Lakers go on to win 129-102.
I might think, Kevin, based on the lack of success, how Dolan has run that organization, that it's seen as a front office graveyard. There are still elite executives in the NBA who still love the idea, the challenge, and the platform of running the New York Knicks, that if they're run right, if they're run correctly, it should be a free agent magnet. It is Madison Square Garden, and anyone knows if you were to go to New York and have any level of success, even short of winning a championship, create a perennial playoff team, they'd give you a parade. So I think there is still a lot of top executives in the league who would love to be considered for this. In recent GM searches, they have not courted the best executives in the NBA. That's not how they run their searches. Will Jim Dolan do that this time?
It's incredible. The mystique of MSG, right? The mecca of hoops still there for the Knicks, even though they have the 3rd worst record right now in the East. Woj, thank you.
Thanks, Kev.
And Stephen A. Smith joins me here on SportsCenter. Stephen A., it's been 7 years since they brought in Steve Mills to be GM, and now he is out. What happened? Why now?
Steve Stout. That's what happened. He's a music mogul, friends with P. Diddy, Jay-Z, and others, and an individual hired by James Dolan about a month ago to repair James Dolan's image, because you've got people booing the Knicks profusely and begging for James Dolan to sell the team while he's in attendance for the Knicks games. He heard those noise reverberating or descending from the rafters and everywhere else from Madison Square Garden. It annoyed him to no end. He hired somebody to help repair his image, and that individual, which is Steve Stout, was repeatedly told, according to my sources, that the coexistence of Steve Mills with James Dolan just doesn't work. Since 2003, the record is 522 and 825. That's a 38% winning percentage, second worst in the entire NBA, only to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Only 3 appearances in the playoffs in the last 16 years. It's been absolutely atrocious. And again, Stout was told Mills and Dolan together don't work, and Dolan's not going to fire himself. So somebody had to go. That's simple.
But it's never simple with the Knicks, Stephen A. It seems like no matter what they choose, it's going to take a long time. Where do they go from here?
Well, let me tell you something right now. You've got notable names, people bringing up names like Jeff Van Gundy or whatever. I'm not buying that. I don't see that happening. I think Mark Jackson needs to keep his phone on because he could get a call. In terms of executives for the New York Knicks, while Perry is running on an interim basis for the presidency, here's Scott Perry. Here's the reality of the situation. You're going to hear names like Lynn Merritt from Nike because of his relationship with a multitude of players and how he's expected to retire in short order in the very near future. You're going to hear other names like Masai Ujiri, but you ain't getting him out of his contract in Toronto, in my opinion. The name I would ask you to keep your eyes on is Kenny Smith of TNT. This is an individual that his name has been mentioned before as an executive. He would love to be an executive for the New York Knicks running basketball operations. He's from Archbishop Malloy, right there in Queens, New York. He's got New York roots. When he speaks about basketball, you're going to listen. The likelihood is that somebody like him would hire Mark Jackson, who everybody here in New York City is clamoring for, myself included. Why, Sage? Because remember I said this, and I've said this on many occasions. The New York Knicks don't just need a coach. They need a voice because nobody wants to hear from Dolan because you don't trust him. Steve Mills is relatively quiet and timid to such a degree in terms of speaking. You need somebody that's going to speak to the media, that's going to speak to New Yorkers, and when they open their mouth, every damn body listens. That's Mark Jackson. That's Kenny Smith. Keep your eyes on Kenny Smith.
Okay.
He wants to be an executive. Mark Jackson wants to be a coach. It's right there for everybody to see. It's just a matter of whether or not James Dolan is going to do it.
It's been 7 years since this team made the playoffs, 50 since they won their last championship. Stephen A. Smith, don't go anywhere. Back with more in a second.
All right.
Sage, it's been a nightmare road trip for the Sixers. Wait a second. You can say that about every road trip for Philly. After suffering the worst loss of the season last night to Jimmy Butler in Miami, the Sixers dropped to 9 games below 500 away from home. Here is the reaction after the 31-point loss.
I thought that our defense was poor. You know, when you create 3 turnovers for a game, it's just not a reflection of who we are.
The physicality side of things, we got to step that up. It comes with experience, also just comes with personality. I mean, you guys just got to step up and be more physical.
You mentioned the physicality. I mean, you guys are a very tall, big team. Why, can you pinpoint why you haven't been able to?
We were soft.
He mentioned the S word. The Sixers have struggled away from Philly this season despite owning the NBA's best home record. They rank 22nd in road winning percentage. Philly has lost each of its last 4 road games by double digits. 3 of those losses have come against teams they currently trail in the East standings. Stephen A. Smith is back with us here on SportsCenter. When it comes to talent and expectations, no team has been more disappointing than the Sixers, Stephen A. You mentioned last night on Twitter, the way they look, they won't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. What has to change right now?
Personally speaking, I think that we might be getting to a point where it might have to be a change in the coach. I like Brett Brown. I'm fond of him as a person. Certainly, he's not losing. They are 31-20, but they're 9-18 on the road. And when you consider the fact that even though they're a top 5 defense, they gave up 80 points in the second half, 81 points to be exact, and caused just 3 turnovers. That's effort. When you talk about the development, that's really what you're supposed to be doing as a coach. Has Joel Embiid gotten better? No. Has Ben Simmons gotten better? No. They're all stars, no question about it. Cornerstones of the franchise as far as I'm concerned, but certainly not living up to expectations. Tobias Harris could do a little bit more, even though he's averaging 19 a game on 47% shooting. You don't have perimeter shooting the way that you should, or the way that Miami does, and things like that of that nature. So when you look at it around, the bottom line is this. This is a team that was favored to come out of the East, and now we're looking at the 76ers and wondering whether or not they're going to get bounced in the first round, because Toronto looks better, Milwaukee looks better, Boston looks better, Miami looks better. The Indiana Pacers haven't even had Victor Oladipo, and they look better. It's just a bad situation right now, and if it doesn't change, you're going to hear people talking about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons can't coexist. Do you really get to talk about that without talking about the coach? Because it's his job to make sure they do coexist. So they got to get it together. I hope he survives. But they got to get it together.
And you know and I know, lack of effort does not play well in the city of Philadelphia. We'll see how this plays out later on this week. Sixers travel to Milwaukee to face the Bucks on Thursday night. Stephen A. Smith with us on SportsCenter.
All right.
NBA trade deadline.